We should then to be, plug this back into the natural world, we need to see how our notion of structure is playing out in reality. And we're going to use the reality of the natural world, which is the only world that we have that we can verify, to see if our notion of structure is working out. And it is my contention that the notions of structure presently used in physics are not correct, or otherwise we would have solved all these problems. We would have unification at this time.
Don, the word model is not an equivalent to structure in a modern jargon?
A model, well, to understand structure, there's another word that you have to work with it, and it's called form. And you have structure and form, and the difference between the two is going to help us understand what we're actually working with. And remember I showed the triangle and the cube. And both are forms, but only one is a structure. The cube collapses. It doesn't have structural integrity. So you can have form without structure, or you can have form and structure together. Now, in the natural world, you never have these separated. The natural world always ensures that the forms of the natural world are structural. But the fact that they are so diverse and have such a wide, mind-boggling complexity to them in each scale as you go up indicates that the form, that the structural system that nature is using to create all these forms is what we've got to find. We know what the forms are. Now let's look for why these forms have structure in nature and why we earthlings are dealing with such a small selection of forms to structure our world. Now, the great thing about physics, both physics looking small and physics looking large, is that they have encountered a new reality to form, and that is they discovered fields. And fields were not understood prior to the advent of science. And now, the fellows working at the small scales cannot just know that if they're going to work with form, they're going to have to be working with fields and the form part of fields, which is matter. And those two are inseparable. And if you look on the big scale, we're always considering the gravitational implications or the electromagnetic implications of what's going on. And when we look at the forms we see out in space. And because we're looking improperly, we're having to invent all kinds of additional fields of energy and forms in order to make the mechanics of the celestial system work. The dark matter, the dark energy, and all these things are not observable, but to conform to the mathematics that we think is operating, we need the presence of that. All of that indicates to me that we're missing the boat here, that we're not seeing the entire picture. And so, back to the subject here of looking at the form and the structure and how they work together, I think we'll just hold that issue of parts make the whole, whole make the parts, and move along, and then maybe we can come back to that later and have a better decision. I want to show you just a few simple things in that regard with knots here. If this string is a totality and this knot is a locality, in this totality, would you agree with that statement? The knot's a local situation that's occurring on what we describe as the string as a totality. I'm liking this event to be any kind of closed energetic event. And it has form, and we can see that its structure, what the structure of it is and the topology of it all. And we can describe this very elaborately and draw all kinds of conclusions about its nature. But until we understand the string, we don't understand really anything about the origin of this thing. And the relationship between totality and locality in this model is that locality can disappear and all you're left with is totality. So from this model, you would definitely say the whole produces the part. The knot did not produce the string, is what they're saying.
Of course, the action that you're doing, your hands, is the energy involved in that knot.
I'm transferring my action into the string and creating a knot.
Okay.
Now that's a metaphysical.
Yeah. But instead of
You're flying out.
That's metaphysics.
no,
And,
nature does it by itself. We're doing it artificially.
Nature does it, but
Yeah.
if we open the can of worms by introducing me into this picture.
No.
This is an artifact. Yeah.
But it is that is exactly what is happening, and the metaphysics of this is really important. But for the moment, I think we can't discuss that because we'll never get beyond it. Let's now. All right. So we have in this model we have seen that the part cannot make the whole. We can't understand the whole by understanding the part. That one is superior to the other. Now we have a situation like this one. There's our part again. There's our chunk of matter. There's our piece of energy on this occupying the locality. Here's our totality.
Oh,
Yes.
I would object to that.
Okay, go ahead.
It's not a totality because you are in space and you can manipulate this, so it's not a totality.
Self-sufficient. It's not a self-sufficient totality.
Right. Yeah. That's what.
Well, I'm saying in terms, if we're only looking at two things here, the string and the knot. And we're saying, and I'm suggesting that the totality of this string can produce the locality of this knot.
Yeah. It's a relative totality. It's not the universe.
Yeah, I'm confining this
Sure.
to a discrete situation. But the interesting thing, the difference between that knot and this knot is that this knot I can't undo. There's no way to get rid of this knot. That's the best I can do in terms of trying to obliterate the knot. But all I've done is transferred locality to totality. And I've spread the knot over the entire string. And so this becomes a philosophical issue. Is the universe a entity that has ends? It terminates. And all that's going on inside of this is, if that's true, then everything that goes on inside of this can be lost. This universe can lose its form, in other words, and be formless. This universe cannot. This universe is always going to have what we're calling mass, but it's going to have either a condensed state or a diploid state. And which is to say, if we look upon this as energy, could it be that the goal of this knot is to universalize itself and to become equally present in all of this universe? This is the law of entropy. This is the law of entropy. This is what it's saying to me. Entropy is saying notness wants to dissipate throughout the universe so that there's universal equality, there's homeostasis. And so he